So, the new Illumination movie, Despicable Me 4, has finally dropped in the UK. It was delayed by, I think, a solid week compared to the US. And while I'd usually give the normal grumbles of why would you release a global movie in a separate time just because of regions, turns out the reason, at least this time around, is football. The Euros are currently going on right now, and because England were playing, we delayed everything a week so that wouldn't clash. And then England made it all the way to the finals, so it clashed anyway. I love marketing. What a real underdog story. I'm not a big fan of football, so I just miss out either way. Regardless, today I finally got around to seeing Despicable Me 4, and I'll be honest, I went in completely blind, not even seeing any other review or commentary about this movie. And maybe now that I've seen the movie, I could work out why this movie, again, just isn't great anymore. Illumination as a studio, I've actually been quite on board with for the last couple of years. Their most recent movie, Migration, I didn't think was all that special, or I didn't have high hopes for it, although it did do pretty well in the box office as a bit more of a slow burner. The time before that, you then have the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which absolutely exceeded expectations and was a massive success, the biggest the studio has ever had, and of course it is, because it's a first-party IP from Nintendo. But even going beyond the side projects they brought out more recently, the most relevant project of recent years from the Despicable Me and Minions franchise, of course, comes from Minions 2, The Rise of Gru. And that movie alone fully turned me around on my perspective on the Minions franchise, as that demonstrated to me that Illumination does still have it, or they actually have something to begin with. Minions 2 was a movie I thought I surprisingly really enjoyed because it had a great demonstration of iconic scenes, great physical comedy, fantastic slapstick moments, and overall was just a brilliant film for everybody to watch. Now, the Minions franchise and the Despicable Me franchise are, to be fair, slightly different series, and though Minions 1 is quite a garbage fire of its own of a movie, the Despicable Me series as well has been quite consistently naff. And unfortunately, with Despicable Me 4, it is very much the same. While I thought Minions 2 had some great iconic moments and some big brass moments, Despicable Me 4 is just kind of, it's not so much only content, it's slightly better than just content. It's not a great movie, maybe it squeaks by as good, it is just your basic family entertainment, isn't it really? And I think there's a lot of issues going into why. I think the biggest one is the fact that there is just an over-bloated ensemble cast with this movie now. It's to the point that they tried to fix it in some elements, and then in other elements, it just didn't work. Obviously, you got the main guy, Gru, and the Minions, right? Gru has a frontal storyline right up front and center. The general Minions, they didn't really get much of a plot. You know, the normal ones, they were just there as background fodder to deal with the spy company. But alongside the fact that we obviously have Gru's 3 children, those have now been cast to the side because we have a new child in the form of Gru Jr. Also, the romantic interest wife character is about, of course it is, big family, sure. But on top of incorporating this new child that's going to completely replace the screen time of the other 3 daughters, and probably should be a moment of character conflict considering these daughters probably should feel pretty overshadowed by how much Gru seems to care about the son and not the 3 daughters, but we'll get there later. You then also have the main batch of Minions having 5 new Minions pop up in the form of the Mega Minions. They are a superhero parody, 10 years too late, and they're still not very good. On top of the fact that you've got these 6 new characters on top of the already established 5, you've then got the likes of Dr. Nefarious, who's hidden as a background character who's left at the old home so that we don't have to talk about him, and then you've also got Poppy, the brand new villainous teenager neighbor, who's kind of just like any other partner we've seen come in and out on any film before it. Then you've got the introduction of a brand new villain, and the brand new villain's girlfriend, who has seemingly little prevalence or relevance to the entire story at large. There's a principal character, sure, a school of evil. There's a badger now for a new pet to add to the compilation. You've obviously got Gru's dog. There's a goat as well. Like, it's just far way too much. But fine, you know what? We're not here for the characters. We're here for the slapstick fun. We're here for the iconic moments. And what were they? I couldn't name a single one. As I understand it, one of the best scenes in this movie is the supermarket scene where the wife and the daughters are getting chased by one of the sad clients at a hairdressing salon. I actually went to the restroom during that scene and completely missed it, so that's great. I guess you could argue things like the Minion laser beam going down through the Arctic is in its own way iconic, but it's trailer fodder. I don't know. I think everyone that's involved in the trailer kind of gets lost on me in the main movie. I just don't think this movie was fun for anybody. But let's go through things in vaguely chronological order for all the million criticisms I have about, once again, another standard, terrible, honestly, Illumination Despicable Me movie. So starting off, I saw this movie the very first time I could, the earliest morning cinema slot I could find in the UK, and, surprisingly enough, there were a good chunk of people. Oddly enough, there were more people in their 20s than under 10, which is something to say for the audience of Illumination movies these days, but hey, I guess it is a school day, maybe that's the interruption there. But then even opening up, the children that were in the cinema were quite vocal in this movie, so I think I've got a decent idea of what was successful and what wasn't. And you know what really lost the steam for this movie immediately? It was the prologue scene. It takes place in this evil school, right, where there's like an alumni award going on. It's here we're introduced to our villain, some childhood school rival evil guy who's also a cockroach. He is the least fun villain of the whole series, and I don't think that's a stretch to say. He's not that flamboyant, he's not that well-worded, and I gotta be honest, I don't think the children in my cinema were even able to understand him. He's got a goofy, thick French accent, right? And I think it leans so far into a nonsensical accent that the children literally didn't understand what he was saying. Especially considering in that prologue he's rambling about alumni awards, which in its own way is a weird phrase for children to pick up on. Every time he was talking, the children went silent, either because they're trying to understand him, or they just outright didn't. And I think that's a major flaw immediately to have to handle. Beyond that, we learn that this cockroach guy is sent to jail, and then he gets out and is giving death threats to Gru, so he goes on the run and goes into witness protection, essentially. Bit of a weird one when you think about it. Why are we hiding and running away this whole time? How do they solve that? Oh, well, they defeat him and imprison him again by the end of the movie. So, just confront him head on, and that problem would have been solved. Regardless, by going to a new room, there's vaguely some things to play around with. It's not that inventive, to be honest. There's a vending machine that a minion gets stuck in, and then I don't even think we see any of the internal bedrooms of this new room. There's no extract of Gru comforting her daughters. None of it is relevant. In fact, the only plot we get from the three daughters is the fact that they don't necessarily want to take on their different identities. They have to go in witness protection. They all get new names. The youngest one doesn't want to lie, so she does it in a karate session, and then her older sister beats up the sensei. Okay, that karate never comes back. It's just its own little micro bubble. That is all of the story for the littlest girl, or other than that she left behind a goat, and the middle child, who's good at lying and will protect her sister against a sensei. Sure. You've then also got the oldest daughter, who doesn't want to move out and have to deal with new friends. The teenagers in this new school are terrible. They attack her with a glitter bomb, and Gru does nothing. Literally doesn't address it, doesn't talk about it, doesn't do anything other than, I've got to deal with my son. Like, there could be a conflict there about how Gru literally doesn't care about them as much now that there's a new family member in the mix. Kind of classic, in a sense cliched, vaguely more important storytelling, because by having so many people in this ensemble cast, you're just watering down all of them. Hey there, thank you for making it halfway through this video. As per usual, do subscribe if you haven't already, if you want to keep up with any future animated movie reviews. We're going to be covering the Sausage Party Amazon Prime series tomorrow, so do stick around if you're interested in that. Otherwise, I'll let you get back to the rest of our angry rambling of a terrible review that is Despicable Me 4. Illumination doing Illumination things. Add on to the fact that, in fact, this eldest sister, Bree now, even had a connection to the villainous neighbor because they went to the same school. Do they interact? Not really. There's no element of seeing in the school with Bree and Poppy. Poppy at one point visits the house and they hang out as a whole pack of girls for the sake of being in the same place at the same time for an action sequence, but they do so little nothing that, like, why are they even here? Obviously because they are obligated to, but like, it's really, really poorly done. Then you've got the wife character, right? She also goes into witness protection. She gets a new name called Blanche. She's chucked in the role of a beautician at a salon despite not really having the skills. She ruins one client's hair, and then that's it. She gets chased in the supermarket. Story done for her. It's not even arcs. It is story dots. It's a beat, and that's it. That's all we get. It is genuinely horrendous. Poppy the neighbor shows up, starts blackmailing Gru after realizing that he is the evil villain of note, forcing him to do a heist to that evil school. Again, how does the geography work? If it takes hours and hours to get out of town to the witness protection house, how does it take so quickly to get to the school that's clearly the same way, both ways, like to either house, whatever, tiny thing. They steal a honey badger. You know, that's a decent enough sequence, although I feel like I saw far too much of it in the trailer that it didn't really hit that well. And then beyond that, she's just a partner that's about. It's nice that because she's a young teenager, she's not exactly perfect at the whole thing. There's been loads of, like, Gru-adjacent partners over the 6-odd movies, and she just feels like another one. It's not that investing, really. Gru Jr., meanwhile, is basically just a Jack-Jack knockoff. Nothing can go wrong with him. He's a bit grumbly at Gru, and that's the only thing he has to a personality. Makes sense, he is essentially a newborn. But then also, he has the same hair as Jack-Jack. He gets taken away by the villain like Jack-Jack. He beats the villain just like Jack-Jack. But not in a way of, oh, showcasing new superpowers. No, he's already shot with the cockroach gun and becomes a cockroach, and then just wakes up from the hypnosis through the power of love. And that's not good. It's just a more cliche version of the normal cliche. In fact, there's a sequence where the villain's like, oh, the Gru's now dangling off of a pole at this point, and he says, say bye, Dada, and then the baby doesn't say anything and just comes out of the hypnosis in that moment for looking at Dada, and then later on says Dada for the very first time for everyone to go, oh, isn't that cute? I think it would have been more effective if in cockroach form, the baby said, bye, Dada, in that moment. And then by saying the words Dada out loud while looking at Dada, it starts to come out of the hypnosis because of that. That would have been slightly more layered, but no, it doesn't give the moment when everyone's surrounding the baby witnessing. Which, by the way, feels like a too many cooks sequence, because Gru and the baby end up landing nearby to the villain, and then all of the 3 daughters show up, and then the wife shows up, and then Poppy, the neighbor, shows up, and it feels like literally everyone just rolling around together to build up the audience to watch the baby say a word. It's very generic. It's entertaining in the fact of switch your brain off, enjoy it, but none of it is iconic. None of it is good. None of it is well done. There's just so many beats to hit that they just skim through it as fast as they possibly can. Even on the Minion side of things, they're kind of not big enough in the stage. I guess it's because it's not a main Minion movie, sure. But what happens is 5 of them are hired up to become a Fantastic Four parody. You got the Superman type, you got the Thing type, you got Mr. Fantastic type, you got the Cyclops archetype, and you got the Spider-Man archetype. Well, I guess that's still Mr. Fantastic. Just a general super strong one, Mr. Incredible, whatever. They then go out, they have one scene, alright? They have one scene where they're put out to do their vigilanteisms, and it's just a standard parody of the power. One parody for every power, that's it. The laser guy lasers a bunch of cats and everything in the nearby vicinity. The best one, Mr. Fantastic, does the Spider-Man sequence with the train, and then slingshots it backwards again. That's vaguely intelligent. It's the smartest thing out of the bunch. They then get ridiculed for their one joke, and then they go off. They go on retirement. Okay, no, they do come back for one more thing. During their retirement, we see them all have engaged with animals completely separately for some reason. One of them enjoys cows, one of them enjoys bees. Alright, fine. They come back out of their retirement, and what do? They just run through the villain so that their relevant animals can do whatever they do. It's so watered down. It is like criminal that that's all of the marketing, and it's boring as well. They make a point about it. One of the old ladies on the street says, I'm sick of superheroes, and that's the joke. But also, it is so watered down that it wasn't even worth really doing. It is so nothing is done in any more depth level than 2. You know what I mean? Like, they've thought one beat, cool it, move on, and that's it. Only Gru has anything more than a step, and even then, I don't really think he is. He's just sort of like a plot device to continue forwards. I thought there could have been a whole room with the villain's girlfriend, who's been like the sort of robotic genius the whole time, the partner in crime. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't have a moment. I don't think she even talks to Gru. She's just there to help along. She doesn't get defeated in the same way that the cockroach guy does. She doesn't have a big betrayal moment. I thought she was going to be the surprise actual big bad, considering she's from the Femme Fatale Club back at the old evil school. But no, she just exists to be the romantic side partner of the cockroach guy, I guess someone to talk to, and she goes into prison just like him. It's stupid. It's terrible. It's just so Illumination of old. I finally had motivation to enjoy an Illumination movie. I thought Minions 2 was great, and the Mario movie, well, you know, not great to everybody from an actual critique perspective. As a fan, I really enjoyed it. And this is just right back to Illumination schmuck. And then at the end of the movie, since the guy is defeated, they go on to return back to their initial house. We see Dr. Nefarious in a very small cameo, and then they do, of course, a dance number. together. They do a talent competition, because that's what the whole villainy thing was about. They sing at the prison Gru was apparently allowed to go into, and you actually see every villain of old, including Minions 1's villains with little grey streaks in their hair, all dancing and singing to this song as a final, seemingly actual ender to the Despicable Me franchise, which in its own way is very, very good. You even see the other things like Gru's brother in like a barbecue setting. It does look like it's meant to be a definitive ending to the Despicable Me franchise. They'll keep milking out the series, but they'll probably just do it via the Minions, because they know that's more successful and somehow turns out much better than this bloated ensemble mess. Even though they've also announced that they're not going to age up any of the children, so are they going to actually keep using them? I don't think it's worth it. Make a TV series. Expand everybody out slowly, man, because we don't need a cast of, how many is it now? Gru, wife, baby, 3 children, 5 minions. Technically, it's got the 3 minions from the Minions. You got the Nefarious as well. Poppy, the dog, the goat, the badger. I think that's 20? I think I counted 20 so far. And that's not including the British CIA guy. It's all just far too much. Please just put an end to it now. You've shown us, Illumination, that you really don't care and you're just not worth it anymore. This was the most Illumination movie, and that is a massive stain on what has actually been a pretty decent rollout in recent years. The last 3 movies were great. You've ruined it on the 4th. And if it isn't the end of the Despicable Me franchise, honestly, I almost feel like I would be motivated to see a super collection of a movie of all of the villains coming out at once. It'd be an even more bloated ensemble cast, but clearly that's what they're going for. And I couldn't believe the price tag of the voice acting cast if you have to include all of the villains of old as well. But considering these kind of movies make Illumination levels of money, I reckon they could probably afford every celebrity to come back again. Sure, why not? We see them all dancing in the prison as if they don't have a grudge against Gru anymore. Have a prison escape movie, sure. Finish Despicable Me 5 on the biggest bloated idea you possibly could, and then just run it back for the prequel the entire time from here. This movie, I waited an extra week and a bit to witness, and it really wasn't worth it. I see now why people haven't been reviewing and talking about this movie. It is just the usual porridgey schmuck that an Illumination movie used to bring out a good 10 years ago. At least in that way, it's quite nostalgic, and maybe that makes sense why there was suddenly far less children watching this in the cinemas and more people like me. It's a more enjoyable movie in the ironic sense than the actual. But on that note, I'm going to end things off there. My name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this review. Do let me know your thoughts on Despicable Me 4. I assume you knew this already. I'm probably quite late to the party. My apologies. Blame the entire country. How dare they do decently at football. Now, if you don't mind me, I'm going to go and watch the Sausage Party Amazon Prime series. What a lovely weekend to follow up for me. And I shall see you in a little bit.